At this time, we want to welcome you to Focus on Liberia. Welcome, welcome, and welcome to the broadcast. Today is Sunday, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to our program, Primetime Sunday. And who we rather have on the Primetime Sunday like this other than the ambassador of Liberia to the United States, um, Ambassador George Patten Sr. He is our guest in the prime time. And so welcome to our broadcast. I'm Anthony C.A. co-hosting with my partner Dennis Jai. In this edition of our show, we are looking at the embassy of Liberia to the United States, or the Liberian embassy in the United States. And the ambassador is here. We'll be looking at the roles and responsibility of the embassy and the ambassador. My partner Dennis Jai will welcome our guest. Dennis, I'm all set.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say a warm welcome to Focus on Liberia. We are glad to have the Liberian ambassador to the US, Canada, and Mexico, Ambassador George S.W. Patten Sr. Ambassador, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you, Dennis. It's my pleasure being here.
And in a special way, we want to welcome all our viewers from across the globe. This is our Prime Time Sunday edition, and we are glad to have the ambassador to explain to us his role, his responsibilities, his mandates, of course, his accomplishments in this field. By way of introduction, he needs no introduction, but just to add a little bit, Ambassador Patten is a career diplomat with more than 2 decades of experience in the Liberian Foreign Service. He served in various capacities at the Liberian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and rose through the ranks in the Foreign Service. Prior to his appointment, believe in 2018, he served as Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of Liberia to the United States of America. He served as Chargé d'Affaires at the Permanent Mission of Liberia to the United Nations in New York, and Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of Liberia to Ethiopia and Kenya. He also served as Permanent Representative of Liberia to the African Union and to the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa. Previously, he served as Minister Consular in charge of political and legal affairs at the Permanent Mission of Liberia to the United Nations. At the time, his functions included the coverage of the UN Security Council, the African Union Observer Mission to the United Nations, and so forth. So without much ado, again, Ambassador, welcome to Focus on Liberia. We are so happy to have you.
Thank you again, Mr. Jai. Pleased to be here.
And our viewers, please, we will be involving you along the way, but now Anthony will take it away from me, and let's get this ball rolling. Anthony.
Thank you, Mr. Jai, and Honorable Ambassador, we can't welcome you enough. But before we get to the questions we have for you, fortunately for us here in the United States, we have a newly elected president. You represent Liberia to the United States. What is your impression, especially when you first heard that Joe Biden, somebody is giving him number, Joe Number Biden was elected president of the United States?
Thank you, Mr. Sear. First and foremost, I want to thank you and Mr. Jai for inviting me to this show. I hope I will not disappoint you. I hope I will not disappoint our listeners. I'm here to speak to you on critical issues on the relationship between Liberia and the United States. Now, as a country, we are pleased that the tenets of democracy continue to thrive in this great country. We applaud the American people for going through this process, and we congratulate them on the election of Honorable Biden as a president-elect. Yesterday, President Weah, after the pronouncement was made, that the projection was made that Vice President Biden had become president-elect, issued a statement congratulating him. And so again, on behalf of the President of the Liberian people, we just want to commend the American people and commend Master Biden for his success in the elections.
So just a little more on the on that story. You know, with that new president, what do you, and looking at the historical relationship between Liberia and the U.S., what do you foresee in a Biden presidency for Liberia?
We are hoping to build on the relationship that Liberia has had with the U.S. going back to almost 2 centuries, almost 200 years. You will recall the founding of Liberia through the American Colonization Society in 1822. The relationship is traditional. It has been growing from strength to strength. So the change of one government, one leadership to another gives us the zeal, the aspiration, the desire to continue to build on that relationship. And we hope that for new relationship in the United States, there'll be greater things and enhancement of the bilateral ties between our two countries.
All right. Again, the voice of Ambassador George Patten, who is the ambassador for Liberia to the United States. He is our guest, and we want to know all the work that he and his team has been doing. We want to look at the roles and responsibility of the embassy and the ambassador, as you may be aware. If not, his role or his jurisdiction extends to Canada as well as Mexico. So it is an opportunity for all Liberians to hear from our ambassador on the work that he and his team has been doing for us. So, Mr. Ambassador, let's start quickly. Let's look at the responsibility that you are charged with to execute. So my question is, what is the role of the Liberian ambassador to the United States, Canada, and Mexico?
Well, the role of the ambassador to the U.S., Canada, and Mexico is not different from the role played by all Liberian ambassadors across the length and breadth of the world. And that role, that responsibility is to protect, promote, advance, and articulate the foreign policy of Liberia, of course, then supervised by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So our mandate here is to promote our interests, the interests of Liberia, of our people, advancing the interests of Liberia, looking after the affairs of Liberian people, and ensuring, of course, that we grant access to people who want to go to Liberia through issuance of visas and other assistance we can provide. Basically, that's what it is. And this is what the embassy across the world does for Liberia.
And I know your job, you just said, is to promote the interests of Liberia, not only in the United States. But when you say interest, the layman down there, I know the word interest has been around for so long, but we want you to give us specific, what is Liberia interest in the America and Canada and Mexico that you are promoting? What is that interest?
People would say the foreign policy.
Okay.
Policy is a set of objectives that guide the relationship between one state and the other. And this formulation is based on the national policy, the national agenda. Liberia's interest will be what is defined by the president as the interest. For example, our interest right now, we want to promote economic growth, we want to promote social development, we want to ensure that Liberia remains peaceful, we want to ensure that our territory remains sovereign, we want to ensure that interfere in the affairs of our membership, we want to be sure that we maintain peace and stability. These are the core interests of our country. And of course, advancing, making sure that we can have access to development that the country needs. This is the core reason why we're here. This is the core reason why we engage. This is the core reason why we appeal to friends. This is the core reason why we sit with partners talking about Liberia and what they can do for Liberia and what we can do in cooperating with them, advancing our cause, advancing our objectives.
You mentioned another key word there, and thank you, Anthony, for that question about interest. Another key word you mentioned is foreign policy of Liberia. What is it?
I just said it is a set of objectives, generally objectives that a country decides.
Right. No, specifically because we know most of the time America's foreign policy, we know it like during the presidency of Theodore Roosevelt, they say a big stick diplomacy. They came with William Taft with his dollar diplomacy, Woodrow Wilson with his moral diplomacy. So when it comes to Liberia, what is it?
Let me just say something about big stick diplomacy you talked about. You see, in the relationship between states, efforts are made for states to cooperate, to collaborate on critical issues. Sometimes when it comes to security, one country A wants country B to do certain things. And that country would find it difficult. So when I talk about a big stick, it is carrot and stick. That is, if you do the right thing, we reward you with something. If you don't do what we want, we use the stick to whip you, to compel you to do what we want.
Right.
It's a big stick. It's a stick and carrot situation, give and take. Encouraging a child, giving a child a piece of candy for doing what you want the child to do, and punishing the child for not doing what you want the child to do. So that's the concept of the big stick diplomacy. Now, Liberia in this relationship with every country around the world intends to progress, intends to grow, intends to be peaceful and stable. In our current situation, we are trying to maintain our integrity, our sovereignty as a state. We want to remain peaceful as a country which just emerged from conflict. We want to be stable. We want to grow. We want to build our roads. We want to encourage private sector investments. That is why we who are out here, who are diplomats, what we're doing is transferring the national policy, the national objective, the national interest into an objective for beyond Liberia, which we call the foreign policy. The national interest becoming the national policy becoming the foreign policy. So we pursue those objectives on behalf of Liberia, of our partners, with the governments to which we are accredited. That's how it works.
Okay. And Mr. Ambassador Patten, I'm curious to know, you as our representative, meaning ambassador to the US, I'm curious to know who here in the US that your day-to-day work involved around. I'm talking about the political actors or the diplomatic actors in the US. Is say the Secretary of State that you are in touch with, to brief him or he update you on what's going on here and there? Is that how? I mean, I just want to know.
Yes, I engage with the Department of State. There are many officials in the Secretary of State that we are with. Also engage with Congress, members of Congress who have specific responsibilities. For example, they have committees on appropriation, they have committees on agriculture, they have committees on security. We engage with all of them. And we also engage the private sector about investment in Liberia, the increase of trade between Liberia and the United States. In addition to that, as I indicated, the concerns of our citizens. We relate to our citizens, we attend to them, their needs, their concerns. And of course, we ensure that those who wish to go to Liberia, who require passports, who require assistance to go to Liberia, do get that assistance. That is in total what the Ministry of Foreign Affairs does. And we who are out here are an extension of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, are on an obligation to promote these critical policies.
All right.
Ambassador, we have the ambassador, we also have the consul general, like here in the US.
Yes.
How are they different or similar?
No, the consul general worked along with the embassy here in Washington, D.C. Besides the consul general, we have a consulate also in Atlanta and one in Minnesota. They help us, they enhance our work, they strengthen our hands. They also attend to Liberian citizens. They're also supposed to engage with business community about trade and investment in Liberia. So we work together. While they were issuing visas and passports, our responsibilities are intertwined.
Do they work under the ambassador?
Yes, we're under the embassy, yes.
Okay.
So at that specific territory, or maybe for lack of better word, let me say states that each of these consulate cover, like the one in Minnesota, how many states does it cover?
It does. It's in Minnesota. They can attend to anybody coming out of Atlanta or going to Minnesota for service. They want to attend to people who don't want to come to Washington, D.C., who want to go to Atlanta for visas or for passports, for anything, or to Atlanta who want to go that way.
Okay. And we know that your jurisdiction extends to Canada,
yeah,
and Mexico.
Precisely.
So do you have physical presence there, or do you have representatives in those two countries that you work along with? How does it work?
No, we have no physical presence in Canada. As a matter of fact, I was in Canada in March, and I was supposed to make a couple of trips, except for this corona pandemic. We engage with them through virtual meetings. We attend our meetings, attend their meetings. Whenever there are meetings, important government functions, we are invited. And in this critical time, all we're doing right now is engage with them through virtual connection Zoom, as we are doing now. Same thing for Mexico.
We talk of interest. So someone watching us, talk about you seeking the well-being of Liberians and their interest. What are some of the things that are in your accomplishment column when it comes to seeking the well-being of Liberians here in the US, Canada, and Mexico? What can you point at?
In the first place, we are encouraging Liberians to invest in their country. Liberia is a country ready for investment, and we don't want to leave that in the hands of non-Liberians alone. We believe that our citizens here who are business people, who have money, and we have always said, everywhere we've been in this country, it doesn't have to be an individual doing that, but those who can come together, form a cooperation, a cooperative, and go to Liberia and invest. In the last couple of months, we have had the opportunity to bring a couple of Liberians together to address and help our country in the fight against COVID-19, and we've made a lot of success getting our people to come together, make contribution in terms of food, money, medicines, to run the hospitals and feed our people back home. Last year we had an investment forum during which we had the cross-section of business people, Americans, Liberians, and people from all walks of life in New York. And we made the appeal that Liberia is open and ready for business in accordance with the President's statement. Potential investors engage us every day, and their desire to go to Liberia. We're still talking to them. One or two have gone, and we're looking for additional investors to go into Liberia, because we know that private sector investment is the way forward in improving the condition welfare of our people.
And since your administration, has any of these efforts you've made to business individuals translated into an investment on the ground?
Yes.
Okay. Any specific example?
In fact, there was one investor who just came back 2 days ago, who was on that we had facilitated his mission to go to Liberia and invest in the oil industry, in the energy industry. He just came back. People have gone there and they're doing electricity, they're providing solar energy right now in Liberia. People have gone there and want to take investment in agriculture. We have encouraged people to go, and we link them with the National Investment Commission, and we hope that everything is working out well for them.
And finally, Ambassador, I mean, that is good that you are saying that through your effort, we have few investors in Liberia. So if I were to show at the embassy, oh, Mr. Ambassador Patten, you've been here, what record can I lay my hands on to look at or see your accomplishment? Do you have data of these businesses somewhere that these are the people who approach and these are the
I have an academic officer, and she keeps a very, very good file of everyone who has come to us, who has gone to Liberia, and those who are still wishing to go. Yes, you can provide that information.
All right, thank you. Folks in cyberspace, you are watching Focus on Liberia. This is our program, Primetime Sunday. I'm Anthony Sia co-hosting with my partner, Dennis Jah, and we are in an exclusive with Ambassador George Patten. He is our ambassador to the United States. Dennis?
Ambassador, one of your functions here is issuing visa or travel documents for the people you service here in the US, Canada, and Mexico.
Sure.
Walk us through the visa process. How do I get a visa?
Well, first Firstly, you don't have to appear at the embassy or the consulate in Atlanta or Georgia or the consulate general in New York to obtain a visa. You can post your passport. All you need to do, go to the website, apply for the visa. Well, go to the website, download the form, fill it out, pay for the visa online. We don't take cash. That's for part of a visa. You have to pay in money order. You obtain the money order. The visa is $160 for 5 days processing. And of course, an additional $75 if you want the visa the same day, an additional $50 if you want the visa the next day. So you don't have to show up at the embassy. All you need to do, fill out your form, put in your passport, attach your passport size photo, put in the money order, and include a return envelope. We'll process your visa and return your passport to you. If you want to come in person to the embassy, you can still come, meeting the same requirements for a visa. Then you decide whether you want to take the visa the same day or you let it run through the 5 working days processing time. It is easy.
And Ambassador, I want to know, sorry, Dennis, Ambassador, I want to know all these services that you provide through the embassy directly or indirectly at these consulate. All the services can be offered or are being offered at all these locations?
Yes, yes. But except Atlanta, a passport. You can process a passport in Washington, D.C., in New York, and we started in Minnesota in September.
Okay.
For those of you who are close to Minnesota who don't want to come to Washington, D.C. or go to New York, you can apply for a passport through the consulate in Minnesota.
And the process is just like the visa?
Yeah, the process, you have to still go on the website. The problem with the difference is that with the passport, the laissez-passer, you bring a money order. Not laissez-passer, with the visa, you bring a money order. With the passport, you have to pay online. That's the difference. You have to pay online and then show up physically at the facility to do your, which is where they do your fingerprint and other things that are required for you to obtain the passport. Of course, you will have to ascertain that you are a Liberian citizen. That's one important thing that you have to meet, that you are a Liberian citizen applying for a passport. So we put you through that rigor. We put you through the process of questions, and you have to answer them, provide relevant information, documentation that the embassy needs or the consulate will need for you to certify you as a Liberian citizen.
And Ambassador, the cost of the passport when being obtained here in the US compared to when being obtained in Liberia, there is a huge difference. Yeah. Any explanation for that?
Well, of course, there is an explanation for that. The passport obtained here is about $205. Home is about $50. And now we have a passport company that the government has engaged that provides services to our people. And the understanding that beyond Liberia, there are additional responsibilities they have to, because when we process the passport, they've been processed, they do the technical work, and that requires them to engage other things. That requires them to commit themselves to other expenditure, which requires the money to be much higher than it's been done for in Liberia.
Any prospect for e-visa?
Yes, government has been in discussion about e-visa. I know it's still being worked on. A couple of months, sometime last year, we thought it was coming through. It hasn't happened yet, but we still look forward to that.
Other African countries are doing this visa upon arrival.
Yes, some are doing visa upon arrival. Of course, you know, ECOWAS, you don't need visa to go to an ECOWAS. And
are we thinking about that, or is that something that we?
Yeah, as I said, there's a policy that should have come into force since last year regarding visas upon arrival. I believe the technical details are still being worked out, but this is where we're going.
And Ambassador, since we are talking about passport also, you are aware of this news about our passport here and there, and fear that it may have ended in other hands that are not, real estate actors. has that caused any image problem for Liberia since the news came out? Have your friends in the diplomatic circle, call you and say, "Hey, what is this?" I mean, I'm just curious to know.
No one has called me about it, but I think this matter has already been addressed.
Okay, Dennis?
Right. Still on the, we'll come back to the passport issue. But let me go on to say that your jurisdiction, we say again, is in Mexico and Canada. People in Mexico, Canada have been pushing for this consulate, to have a consulate. First of all, what are some of the considerations to have a consulate in the place, and how is that process with Canada going?
The process, of course, when I went to Canada, it was one of the issues that came up for discussion, and we're working on it. Normally you don't just appoint a consular agent in a country. You have to have the approval of the country. You have to seek their permission to appoint a consular officer. But we are not there yet. We have to be able to approach them, make a request to open the consulate. And as soon as they can agree and define the consular area, the consular jurisdiction, then we get to the point of looking for someone who serves our best interest, or the best interest of Liberia in Canada. Not necessarily a Liberian, it can be a non-Liberian, but if we can identify Liberians in Canada who can do that, it wouldn't be why they wouldn't be appointed. But that's how it goes.
And we have one in Mexico. How is that going for us?
I'm not sure I want to address the Mexico thing. I have not been to Mexico. Actually, I've gone to Mexico in April, but they wrote to me and said they were not allowing travel from here due to COVID-19, so I wouldn't know much about the Mexico situation.
And Ambassador, how could we, I mean, I don't know the history there, but the fact that we heard about a consulate in Mexico, where I'm not sure there are many Liberians, and then looking at Canada, where we know we have a lot of Liberians. I mean, how quick could the government be in getting one in Mexico? Well, I can, for the sake of argument, say we have no Liberians. And then Canada, where Liberians there are thirsty for an embassy.
I don't know whether you'd be right to say we have no Liberians in Mexico. Nobody knows that. But I believe there are Liberians in Mexico. We don't have a number. I haven't been there, as I said, but strongly, I believe there are Liberians in Mexico. We may have a greater number in Canada compared to Mexico. As I said, the Canada situation will be worked on and will be resolved very, very soon.
So the issue of character, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but this is what I do, of the gentleman who is the consul general in Mexico. People are raising questions against his character. Is that something you want to talk about? Do you know him to be somebody of good character to represent Liberia?
I don't know him. I don't know whether he is a person of good character or not. I haven't seen him, and I wouldn't be able to speak to that.
All right, then let me bring you to Canada.
Because Mexico falls under your jurisdiction. So if there's a honorary consul general there, they should be working directly under you.
Precisely.
And you don't know him.
And you say you don't know him.
I have not met him.
And there's no working relationship.
I have not met him. I would suggest there's no working relationship.
So how could your honored man not have any working relationship with you? We understand he's been representing Liberia there for over 6 months.
Well, see, I indicated earlier that the question of Mexico, I believe, has been sufficiently addressed by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Okay.
And I will want to leave it at that.
All right, then, Ambassador, this is what I want you to do for us. I'm asking this question on many Liberians' behalf. I've been to Canada, and you've been there. You know more about Canada than I do. And I'm sure you have been making effort for us to get, at least some form of consulate there. Any time frame that you know of, even if it is not specific, but I mean, with your efforts in that regard, get us some present there in maybe a year or two?
As I said, the procedure is such that you firstly, to Canada, have information that a request, establishment of a consulate had been made. I went to Foreign Affairs and tried to look into that. They said they couldn't find the letter, so we'll have to go and start the process all over. So we would say the next 6 months to a year, we should be able to put a consulate in Canada.
Yeah, that will bring a relief. We heard a similar concern from Liberians in Europe. I remember we had some Liberian organizations from Europe, and they were complaining about the same thing, that they have to travel all the way to Germany if they wanted a passport. But let's look at our Liberians here in the United States. Is there a platform through which, or how is your community outreach with Liberians here in US and Canada? Or for instance, we have EULA, we have county organizations, we have state organizations, we have alumni association. Is there a platform through which you interact with Liberians through these various organizations, or how is that outreach look like?
We have 2 diaspora officers at the embassy. And since I've been here, I've reached out extensively. I have a very, very good relationship with EULA. I have been to many states speaking to Liberians. I've attended many functions. And except for, save for this pandemic, maybe I would have covered the entire length and breadth of this country by now. But we're reaching out to our people, having a conversation about national issues, their concerns, and we will continue to do so.
One more on, what is the embassy doing to promote tourism? Are there like short trips organized to Liberia? Like we see with Ghana, they have this back to Ghana, and things, trips like that are taking place. Is the embassy doing something like that?
The national government, the Ministry of Information, is working on a program that will promote tourism. I believe you've heard in recent time the development that is taking place on the Providence Island, and the policy is now in place, or it's being discussed about opening an office that will, government office and agency that will cater directly to tourism. And I think between now and a couple of months, that policy, that agenda, government agenda to improve tourism, encourage visitors, tourism to Liberia, will be declared officially.
And Ambassador, let me take you by a little bit, not too far back. We're talking about your jurisdiction, Mexico. So if we are to get somebody there, how is the selection or appointment process done? Will you have a say as to who represents Liberia in Mexico, or the Ministry of Foreign Affairs or the president will have to be the one to decide who becomes your
the
representative there?
The ambassador does not decide who becomes the honorary consul.
Okay.
The ambassador can recommend. It's suggested that those who wish to become an honorary consul for Liberia will come through the embassy. The embassy introduce them to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs then go to the president, and how the details get worked out, and that person gets appointed. But as I said, it's not something you do a day or two, maybe 2 months, because it is a process.
Okay.
It's like, I want to come to your house and I will have to tell you that I want to send somebody to your house. You have to accept that, yes, this person can come. And sometimes it takes time. Countries do their own diligence. They want to know who that person is, what he's doing, what he's engaged with, before they can grant that approval prior to the appointment. Of course, they will also define the consular jurisdiction, where you can be. You will not be registered in, for example, in the States, you can be in Minnesota and Atlanta at the same time.
Ambassador, Focus on Liberia had a great virtual Independence Day program this year. Is the embassy planning on hosting the next year, July 26th program?
We had a great one last year, and we were planning for this year when COVID just stepped in. By July next year, the COVID situation would have receded, we hope that it would not be around to stop us from getting together as a community of Liberians. And so, yes, if the time permits, if the situation is okay, we will bring our people together again. Last year, we had the cultural extravaganza. You know the day, if you've been there before, where Liberians from all walks of life converge on the embassy and eat and drink and dance and celebrate. We had one last year. And then on the day itself, there was a dinner at the ambassador's residence where we had even our foreign guests and other Liberians coming to participate. So we look forward to that. Unfortunately, as I indicated, we couldn't do that this year because of COVID. We hope by the time we get to July next year, COVID will not be around to allow us to celebrate.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, we're going to have time to open our phone lines, but before that, let's announce that this is focused on Liberia Prime Time Sunday. Our guest is Ambassador George S. Patten Sr. We are discussing his roles, responsibilities, and mandates as Liberia's ambassador to US, Canada, and Mexico. Let's go to Liberia-US relations, Ambassador. And first of all, walk us through what's the history of that. We know very well, we recall that it happened like 17 years after Liberia got her independence, but the ties have been closed. Give us some history there.
The relationship between Liberia and the United States didn't start from the time we're talking about. It started in 1822 on the founding of Liberia through the American Colonization Society, which assumed responsibility to transport freed Africans and people of color from the United States of Africa. That's how we got founded, and then we declared our independence in 1847. You're aware of that. And 1847, 1862, we were recognized by the United States. 2 years later, Liberia and the United States established diplomatic relations. That was in 1864. Now, with the establishment of those relations, we had the American government setting up a legation. It's an old word that was used in the 19th century. The legation is a mission, a diplomatic mission, which is not headed by an ambassador. It's either headed by a minister or some consul. So throughout the 19th century, as most countries use that, they established legations all over the place. So the US legation had been in Liberia since then. We should have had one here. But our history tells us that in 1949, the US legation was elevated to ambassadorial level. It was concomitant in the sense that at the same time the legation was being elevated to ambassadorial level, I was being elevated to ambassadorial level. At the time, former President Charles D.B. King was here serving in the United States as Minister of Liberia in the legation. Are we on?
Yes, sir.
And in Liberia, we had an American gentleman called Edward Dudley. He was then the minister. So when things got elevated to ambassadorial, President King became the first Liberian ambassador, and Edward Dudley became the first U.S. ambassador. That was in May 1949. But the relationship between Liberia and the U.S. has grown from strength to strength. As I indicated, almost 200 years, almost 2 centuries of friendship and cooperation. And it has flourished, it continues to flourish. And part of our work we do here is to strengthen it and ensure that it flourishes more and beyond expectation. We are working hard in collaboration with the American government. The embassy is in Liberia engaging with the government on a variety of issues. And so it remains strong, and we'll continue to get strong.
And looking at that historicity of the Liberia-US relationship, what effort has we exerted so as to transform those ties into that of permanent interest and mutuality?
I know permanent interest in international relations. Interest can change. My interest or your interest today may be moving from one room to another, but by the following week, your interest may change. So international affairs, there are no permanent interests. We refer to them as strategic interests.
Okay.
So we want the strategic interests of a country, diplomats and governments do engage on those interests. And in our own case, I made reference to the national interest. The foreign policy is an extension of the national policy. Why is the national policy right now in Liberia? We're talking about maintaining our peace and stability. We're talking about reconciliation. We're talking about growing our economy so that Liberian people can grow economically and socially. We are talking about not interfering in the affairs of states. We're talking about maintaining bilateral international friendships with folks beyond our borders. We are talking about maintaining the integrity of our borders so that they don't get violated and our country maintains its sovereignty. These are the critical national issues that every national government, current government, will protect. And those are the issues which then get translated abroad. And those are the issues which we diplomats who sit abroad must now protect, must now promote, must now advance the economic and cultural interests. That's why we are engaging with business people, because it's a critical government interest to grow the private sector. So every embassy across the world, Liberian embassy, should be engaged with the private sector, encouraging folks to go back to Liberia and invest. We're talking about security. We must make friends. We don't have all of the means to do all the things we want to do. We depend on our partners to support us in this fight against Ebola. We could not have done it alone if we didn't have relationships with countries. This country alone was involved in fighting and defeating Ebola. The COVID-19 came around, and the US has also been involved in fighting and defeating COVID-19 in Liberia. So this is how it works. We rely and depend on each other.
Right. Ambassador, that dependency on each other, what I really want to see, or what I want to ask you is, how can we evolve from that culture or that climate of permanent relief aid assistance to that of seeking investment and trade and having that bilateral relationship, not like a father-son, but has equals? How can we evolve?
Yeah, but you see, to go beyond that, to transcend that point, being self-sufficient, being able to do for ourselves what others are doing for us now, is to be able to build our capacity. We have to build capacity. That's why the government now is investing heavily in agriculture, so that we'll be able to grow our own food and sell the leftover and make some money, so that we'll stop importing rice either from here or from China or from India. That's one way that we can do that, building capacity and being able to grow for ourselves what we eat. Being able to train our own, being able to improve our educational system in Liberia. Advanced technology. Those of you who are out here who have the capacity to do that can go back home and train our people. This is a message we have always delivered whenever we go out to speak, encouraging our citizens who are here to go back home and invest. And not just you, look for friends, help your country. If you have someone who has money, who is looking for investment and want to look in the world of Liberia, encourage them to go.
So in your view, we are not at that point yet where we can talk as equals. We are still on a please help me relationship.
See, no one is generally sufficient.
Okay.
No country is generally sufficient. That's why I said countries rely on each other for basic things. That's why when you have countries cooperating and collaborating on critical issues, for example, on security, on terrorism. You don't know where a terrorist will come to enter Liberia. Liberia doesn't have the capacity. Even here, you know what happens here when people come through the borders, they slip through the cracks and cause havoc. So countries depend on each other. They share information, intelligence, who's moving here, who's coming here, who's entering this country, who's getting out. So when I talk about interdependence, this is one of the things I'm referring to, so that the country is sufficiently adequate to do everything that it wants to do. We are independent, we're dependent, interdependent, and help every country, for that matter, share information on critical issues and help them get through and save humanity.
Yeah, Ambassador, I understand that, but we know where this Liberia-America relationship being one-sided has led us. We go back, and you know this better than I do, go back to the loan of 1912, 1913, go back to the Firestone loan, go back to all these things where, you know, Americans were appointed to be Liberia's finance minister or treasury secretary so they can collect the revenue themselves. So we know how this relationship has been. So the idea that no country is sufficient of itself when it comes to America-Liberia relationship, it's been almost always one-sided, and we've been at the receiving end, and that has impacted us negatively.
But Mr. Dennis, you should know that Liberia is a third world country. And the United States is, you know, you're here. The situation between the two countries is strictly incomparable. We have equal strength in every respect, but we're equal sovereign states. That is why when we appear at international fora, we sit as equals. But in terms of our personal relationship, bilateral relationship, in many respects, we are not equal. So to make the point that we are receiving aid, of course, Liberia is the only country that would receive aid in terms of people coming to superintend our ministers of finance or whatever they're doing, or resources, revenue, and all of that. Liberia is not the only country that I go through it. Before these people got here where they are, they had their own challenges. And I believe our history, even though more than 170 years, people contend that we should have made progress by now. But as again, that's our history. I believe we will get better. Liberia will grow. It will not continue to be a child. And we will get to the point where it begins to be sufficient and try to compare yourself with other nations.
Ambassador, let me come in, and I'm asking a question from a completely limited mind.
Yes, please.
And my question is, I have seen the impact of aid only when there's crisis. When we had war, I benefited from the food because I was hungry. When we had Ebola, I saw help there for our people when they needed it. But in the absence of any crisis, any record where diplomacy has helped in terms of development that you can share with us? I mean, no crisis whatsoever, countries having relationship with each other. I mean, has that promoted development in any shape or form based on your experience and history?
Yes, as we speak, we're not in crisis. But true, you say the U.S. government is still in strengthening education, it's still helping Liberia, in strengthening the health sector. Those are two key areas, making sure that our system of education is strong, making sure that the health system is vibrant to the extent that we'll be able to treat our own people, train doctors who help us train security, police, and of course, you know that this country was involved in reorganizing the military and building the capacity of the armed forces of Liberia, which will have covenant. So yeah, we're now in crisis. And as I said, every country around the world, especially if we want to go to Africa, need aid from somewhere, whether from the United States or from the UK, from Germany, from Europe, from Europe for that matter. It's not limited to the area.
Can we look at the Firestone plantation in Liberia as maybe an example of an investment as a result of diplomatic relationship?
Well, I don't know. I wouldn't be too sure about the circumstances that led to the establishment of the Firestone Company in 1926, but I believe, and it was, I would simply say it was for the purpose of investing in Liberia. At the time, of course, you know, we were in financial crisis. I believe that investment did do us a measure of good. And Firestone is still there. It has a number of Liberians who are employed with the company and who have been able to feed their families and send their children to school by virtue of their employment with that company. So Firestone is an investment, in my view, that is to a large extent helpful to Liberia, even though there's argument that Firestone should have done a little more than it is doing now, but are still out there for the day.
If you can't say that for Firestone, what's about the Rabat International Airport? My little knowledge is that there was war. The U.S. wanted to have some form of, landing space in Africa, and Liberia became that country to use because of that relationship. So can we say that about the RIA as, kind of development that went to Liberia because of our relationship?
Again, as I said, countries are interdependent.
Okay.
The RIA, I understand, was built during the Second World War. And the history behind the RIA, in my understanding, is that the Americans were looking for an airstrip that they would use, because moving troops and other things, equipment from one place to another became a problem. So they were looking for access, and Liberia, being a friend, a traditional friend of the United States at the time, accepted for that RIA to be constructed. And we still have it, even though it was built to meet the war effort. It is our airport. The Americans don't own it. It is our airport. It has served us since that time.
Thank you. Well, we have some callers on the line to interact with the ambassador. Let's see who we got. Our first caller.
We have Jimmy Eastman on the line.
Yes, can you unmute the call line?
Okay. Oh.
All right, while we try to unmute that line, Ambassador.
Yes, please.
Again, it goes back. So what now is the potential of Liberia in this economic age for that bilateral and mutual front in the countries where you have your
muted.
Dennis, can you please go back to the question? It was
Yeah, we're having some trouble with the phone line. No, my question is, what is Liberia's potential, in this economic age, so that we can have that equal relationship, we can have that bilateral relationship on mutual fronts when it comes to those countries under your jurisdiction, Mexico, USA, Canada?
There was interference, Dennis.
Yeah, go ahead. We took care of that, Ambassador.
Yes, of course. President, we are, as government introduced a national policy contained in the pro agenda. That agenda is the blueprint for the government moving forward, addressing the issues of education, the issues of social economic development, the issues of reconstruction. Yeah.
All right, we have a caller on the line. Let's bring Jimmy Eastman in. Jimmy, welcome to Focus on Liberia. Your question for the ambassador.
All participants are unmuted.
Yeah.
Jimmy, quickly.
No, the main line is muted, so we may not be able to hear Jimmy.
No, it's unmuted at my end here.
No, not the caller, but the main line is muted.
Oh, okay. Let me unmute that and see.
All participants are muted, and they can unmute themselves.
Yeah.
Why is that happening?
All participants are muted, and they can unmute themselves.
All right.
We don't have the. Let's move on with the ambassador.
Mm-hmm.
We having problem with the callers. Jimmy, so we'll switch. Jimmy, you can call 978-726-6965. Go ahead, Ambassador Patten.
So what I was saying is that the government's policy has continued moving forward, addressing the conditions of our country contained in the 4 agenda, and the government is vigorously pursuing the 4 agenda. You know, as I indicated earlier to you, we have the new Minister of Agriculture who is working very hard to move that sector so that we can be able to grow our own food, feed ourselves, and be able to sell perhaps a surplus. And if we are able to feed ourselves and save and sell surplus, we'll be able to save hard currency. I understand we spend around 200 million a year importing rice and other essentials. So that's one area the government is trying to improve. On the question of equality, total equality, I'm not sure this is where we want to go, because it will take us so many years to be trying to get equal with the United States. The idea is not to get equal in terms of what, as sovereign states, we equal. International law provides that as sovereign states, we have equal rights, we equal as sovereign states. But in terms of our bilateral relationship, what we do for each other, we have our own limitations, and of course, we are far below expectation here. What the people do, the things they're able to do, from economies, from education system, technology, roads. And so the government is playing this part, reconstructing, opening roads. There was a new hospital built recently. We had just JFK. And, you know, people, when that hospital was built, some people criticized it. But I wonder what would have happened if that hospital was not there during this pandemic time, how helpful it has been to our people, and accommodating people who were positive with COVID. And that hospital is where they went for treatment. So that's a fine investment that the government made. Investment in agriculture is good. Investment in road connectivity is also good. Even if we were to say we should be able to feed ourselves without road connectivity, we still have a problem. So the government is on course trying to build more roads, creating access to market roads. Right. How we are going to move our country. And we are not saying we're going to be on the same level with the United States, having express roads, 4, 5, 6, 8 lanes.
Hold on.
Going to take us a long time, but you know the Lafayette Highway is going to be done very soon. The work is very, very soon. And so I think we're making progress. I wouldn't.
Thank you. Let me bring in our caller.
On that level, yes.
Let me bring in our caller. Caller Jimmy Ismail, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Ambassador, can you hear the caller?
Faintly, but I will try to pay attention.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
Hello, Ambassador. How are you today?
I'm okay, sir. How are you? The guy, you're trying to speak Amharic or something?
Okay, I was speaking Amharic to you, Ambassador.
Thank you. I got you loud and clear.
Here's my question, sir.
Yes, sir.
At one time, Liberia was a strategic interest to the U.S. Hence, we had the RIA construction. For today, what can we offer the U.S. that will will make us again a strategic partner that they will want to erect factories or do more business with us? What, in your point of view, can we offer the USA right now?
Thank you. For answer to that question, I stated earlier that interests can change. Interests are not permanent. Every government has the right to define what is a priority and what's not a priority. Every government has the right to say, well, country A is strategic, or country A is less strategic. They define that relationship and how they prefer to move on with it. So the fact that we're still good friends of the United States. We're still good friends. We still have a strong partnership. That is good. That the Americans are still with us. They have not abandoned us in critical times in our civil conflict. They were there with us when the need has come up. They have always provided, whether it is moral or financial support. They have always provided that. They have been there. This I can say, and they're still doing that. Even though what you made reference to not being in Liberia anymore, but we are still engaged with them. It's in their purview to determine on how they want to proceed with Liberia, whether they consider us as a strategic partner or as a less strategic partner. But we still have partnership with them, and we work together and at a higher level. At international fora, we support each other, we support their interests. They also support us. This is what bilateral ties are about, maintaining friendships and being on the side of each other when they need analysis.
All right, Maslow, there's a big war, or maybe a little sensitive war called image. And I think in your line of work, it is very important you will agree. At some point, I had an opportunity of listening to one of our officials of government, and he said, every time I went out to lobby for the country, there's this cloud hanging over us, and people will tell me, but this news coming from your country, it's not too good. And he would struggle to explain that, oh, it's not true. Have you had your share of similar instances where, friends in your diplomatic circle call you, hey, what is this news we're hearing? What is this and what is that? And you have to struggle or fight hard to explain yourself?
Of course, it happens all the time. Whether you're in America or somewhere, especially the diplomatic circle, who will hear something about a country and they close to you, they will call something, hear this about country, what's happening. Like in the situation with the what people are all talking about, 16 billion. Mm-hmm. The word got around. I was in Addis Ababa at the time, and people were asking questions. But fortunately, the government reached out to the African Union, asked for help to investigate, and we showed up there. And we provided clarifications on what was happening. So yes, it's normal for every country where you have friends inside the government that you're engaged. There may be people in the government who hear certain things and they want you to explain. Yes, it's normal. And that's why you are out there, because when things happen back home and out there, people don't know. It is your business as the ambassador to go and present the true story about what's happening. So that's part of our work. We engage every day, provide information that they may need, things that they need, also clarify situations that need further elaboration. We go and we do that. So it's normal.
Yeah, I think you were in foreign service. Correct me if I'm wrong. When we were having a war, tell me how it was for you. When I say you, those of you in the diplomatic arena at the time, war raging in your country, you representing your country, maybe the cables are not flowing. So tell me, were there people coming through you or seeking information about what's happening? Has there been a time to reach out to, hey, give us the information we needed to get this done?
Yes, those things will always happen. Even during the war years, what happened, foreign service officers, some who couldn't get paid, who didn't have rent. And personally, I slept in the street in the Gambia. I have to tell you this on this forum. We couldn't pay our rent. And the Gambian government, they were an individual whose house I lived in, my family at the time, we took me to court. The government didn't have money. We were at war. No money was coming in. So one late afternoon, I had the constable from the court, appeared at the gate of the embassy when I was about to leave. And since he couldn't enter the embassy, he waited for me outside. I didn't even know he was there. And so he handed me the eviction notice. I didn't have anywhere to hide. So they drove behind me to my house, and then they helped me and my family put our things outside. The house was in the fence. Even the eave of the building, they had a metal fence around the eave. So what the landlord says, well, young man, I was very young at the time. He said, well, you say you don't have anywhere to go since you don't.
And you are still young, Ambassador.
You can sleep here in the fence. And Mrs. Year, me and my family and little children, we slept in that fence under the open air. We woke up in the morning drenched in dew. Bad it was. We slept out there. But we didn't give up. I didn't give up. There were some colleagues of mine who left the service, came to America, and they are still here. But some of us stayed behind. If we had all left, we would have been there to work for Liberia. So I stayed. I committed myself to it, and I'm still committed to it, no matter what. After all these years. So you imagine finding yourself in that situation where you have to sleep in the street under the open air for country. Now, the question of people asking questions, I said, yeah, people ask questions all the time. They want to know how is the peace situation, what is going on in those years. We're talking about Yamoussoukro 1, Yamoussoukro 2, Yamoussoukro 4. We're talking about Banjul, this Accord. We're talking about Accra. We're talking about Abuja Accord. And so people will ask questions. There were a couple of times I had to go out myself under the instructions of my ambassador to engage and to talk to people about the peace process and how negotiations were going. So yes,
Ambassador, if the government of Liberia is speaking or contacting the American government, would that be through you or the foreign minister? And let me give you an example. Of late, we heard that the Liberian government has requested the U.S. to help with the investigation into the death of the auditors. Would that be something that you will handle, or will it be through the foreign ministry?
There are 2 or 3 ways it can be done. The government of Liberia contacted me about that before the contact with the U.S. Embassy in Monrovia. So there are 2 ways. It's a 2-pronged approach where the message is delivered here and also delivered in Monrovia.
How has the follow-up been?
The follow-up to deliver, I deliver my message to the Department of State, and I follow up with the department on that. And of course, they will engage my office or engage with their embassy in Monrovia on the steps that they're taking to help the government.
Any latest update on that?
Well, as far as my information goes, they have the folks in Monrovia, in the embassy, who are helping government or should be helping government with that.
The question slipped my mind earlier, and I want to ask that concerning passports, right?
Yeah.
And in this passport, first of all, we have this dual citizenship fight. And if people come to your office for passport, how do you verify that they are Liberians or they are people that have naturalized, Liberians that have naturalized and taken American citizenship? So how do you do that investigation to award passports to Liberians?
Well, in the first place, we have our own way. Firstly, you have to bring your own passport, the passport you came here with. It has to be available. Then we want to ask for your work permit and then your green card. Now, people who hold green cards don't hold an American passport. If you have an American passport, you don't have a green card. They take that from you. So if you cannot produce any of those documents, which will testify to your being a Liberian citizen, if you still don't have an American passport, your green card will tell us that you don't have, and we'll give you a passport. If you cannot produce a green card, then we suspect that perhaps you have an American passport, and the onus is now on you to prove that you are not an American citizen. Or we could ask, the policy provides that people in the community who know you can also vouch for you and say, look, we know this person, we know this man, we know this woman. He is a Liberian. This is what he has been doing. This is what she's been doing. This is his status or status as far as we know. And that will have to be notarized and brought to the embassy. Those are the conditions in which, when we satisfy, we can accept you to apply for a passport.
And one last question is the phone. Anytime when I was preparing for the show, someone called me and said, ask the ambassador, anytime we call the embassy, the phone is just ringing and nobody's picking it up. What's up with this phone line?
It's unfortunate, since I've been here 2 years now, Mr. Jam, the phones are working. we are in the COVID-19 time. And so at 3 o'clock, the reception area, the passport session is closed, the visa session is closed. As a matter of fact, we work from home. Only in rare cases I will show up at the embassy. We do all of our virtual meetings, do our meetings virtually on Zoom like we're talking now. So we want to be sure that our people don't get infected. We want to be sure that people who come to us for services are also well. So we work from home most of the time. So at 3 o'clock, when the consular session is closed, if you call in at 3 o'clock, that reception desk is closed. Nobody is going to pick up. But there are some people, and I will tell you this, Mr. Jack, who even call on Saturdays and Sundays. Now, do they expect us to be working on Saturdays and Sundays, even on holidays? They are calling. And it's unfortunate that those people who are calling on Sundays and holidays, nobody's going to pick up the phone.
Right. But you will have a voice recording.
At 2 o'clock, they will tell you that the office is closed.
Okay.
There will be times when that you will call and the line is busy. It will tell you to wait, hold on. They will connect you to this number. And because we are now working full time, we're still working from home generally. There are staff members who should be on those various phones, on those various desks. They are not there. So when the call comes to the office and the receptionist is there and that line is busy, automatically that call goes to another line, to another office, and nobody is in there who's going to answer that. This is the situation we have right now. So we hope with this COVID thing is going to go away so that we go back to our normal activities. And I believe through that we'll be able to address the telephone. But it was, when I came here, I understand it was worse, and we've been able to address that. I think we've made our progress. People have praised us too, but there are still people who will still complaining that the thing is working to their expectations. These things happen.
Let me read a few comments. There's one here I know is this one you made. Say, can Mr. Ambassador please elaborate on how can one obtain Liberian passport or visa in Australia? I know your jurisdiction doesn't cover that, but you know a thing or two.
As Australia, I am not sure whether we have any representation in Australia. You would find the closest Liberian representation to Australia. So I wouldn't be able to help you, unfortunately, with an answer. I don't have information whether we have any representation in Australia. I know we don't have an embassy, but whether we have a consulate in Australia, I wouldn't be able to say.
Spencer Tonga said, can a Liberian who is now American citizen obtain a Liberian passport?
You cannot. The law provides that you cannot obtain it. If you were trying to obtain that, it would be fraud. So if you are caught doing that, it will be wrong. You shouldn't try to obtain one.
Okay. There is a question here from Jimmy Eastburn. I know you addressed this, but our viewers are very important. So let me read that. You can give the same answer you gave before. It says, can the ambassador confirm the existence of the consulate in Mexico? Is there an exchange in communication?
I'm aware through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that we have a consulate in Mexico, but I have not spoken to the honorable gentleman who is representing us there.
Sam Wallow says, does the Liberian embassy seek assistance from the U.S. State Department in determining whether a Liberian residing in the U.S. and who is applying for a Liberian passport has a U.S. citizenship?
No, we don't do that.
Jimmy, again, can we expect President Weah to pay a state visit to the U.S.?
Yes, we expect the president to pay a state visit to the U.S. This is one thing which is at the top of our agenda. We're working on it at the appropriate time. Not very long. The president will be here.
What has been the challenge?
Of course, we've had it depends on the president's agenda, and in the last 4 years, President Trump has had a huge agenda. We don't control it. It's a question of fun. You don't just come as a president of one country. The president has to be ready to receive you, and all arrangements have to be made. And those have not been made.
Mr. Ambassador, I have 3 questions. They will be very short, and
yes,
provide me very brief answers too. Some time ago, I read multiple news articles talking about the challenges people in our foreign service were facing with salaries, and to the point that even some embassies could not afford rent. What is that true, or was that those stories true at all? And if so, did that include your embassy, and how was that taken care of? That's one. The second one is there are many people that entertain the idea that we have too many embassies. And this is the pro government with too many embassies, and we look at our budget, we don't have that money. Where do you stand on that? Finally, dual citizenship. You are here. Many Liberians in the U.S. have U.S. citizenship. Is that something you support? I mean, you can choose not to comment on that one.
Firstly, the question of salaries and rent, I can't speak for other embassies. Only the Minister of Foreign Affairs can address that. Now, concerning my embassy, our salary are current. Rent are also current. I don't know what's happening in other countries, whether they have the current salary rent. For my embassy, we are fine. Now, on the question of dual citizenship, the president, when he assumed office, told the Liberian people that this is one particular thing he was going to elevate, and he has done that. He's put it on the front burner. He's gone to the national legislature. His government has worked with them to work out a program, what we call Proposition 1 now, which is going to be on the ballot in December. So this is a policy of the government, which I support. It's now left with Liberians in the diaspora who have been advocating for dual citizenship to make the call, to the Liberian people, because you are a dual citizen, you can vote. The voters are in Liberia, so you have to make that pitch, you have to pivot. I hope you can hear me because there is interference here. You can hear me? Yes, can you hear me, Mrs. Here?
Yeah, I'm hearing you, Ambassador.
So the onus is on the diaspora group and organizations here to move the ball to Liberia. Yesterday there was a meeting, the All Liberia Conference convened. I was in that meeting briefly, still talking about dual citizenship. So the whole question of dual citizenship is a policy of the government, of the president, which we support. Natural born Liberians should have, those who have lost it should be restored unto them. But in our view, the people here are continuing to squabble. There are others who are suggesting that the proposition should be defeated, and there are others who are supporting it. So you have to, folks here in this community.
Yeah, and my other question was, where are you on this? Now we have. Yeah, I was saying, where are you on the idea being expressed by others that we have too many embassies than we need? Where do you stand on that?
Well, for many years, the Minister of Foreign Affairs tried to streamline the missions abroad. That is why, in some instances, you have one embassy sitting in Washington, D.C. It's covering Canada and Mexico. That is why you have the embassy in Addis Ababa covering Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and Sudan, because government has realized that it is not possible to put an embassy everywhere. Besides that, the cost of maintaining the embassies, costs are very, very high. You have to pay for staff, you have to pay rent, you have to pay salary, you have utilities, and you have to maintain it. It's very, very high. So the policy to streamline has been on the books for quite some time, I'm aware. Now, whether under the current dispensation policy is going to be implemented, but I can't say, but it's been on the books for quite some time. And I think it serves the larger and greater interests of the country if we were to streamline and making sure we can save some money and attend to other national issues.
Let me get our last caller for the night. Call out your name and where you calling from.
Hey, Mr. Ja, and Mr. C, I'm Anthony Doe, and I call you from Atlanta, Georgia, specifically Jimmy Carter Boulevard in Norcross.
Anthony, go ahead. You're live.
So I want to speak to the ambassador. I'd like to say thank you for coming on. And my first question has to do with the issue of dual citizenship. I would like to know whether the ambassador holds a U.S. citizen and Liberian citizenship. and how can he relate to that as to his role as an ambassador or having a U.S. citizen and a Liberian citizenship. Number two, I'd like to understand why you said that we will have a consulate in Mexico. To the best of my knowledge, I don't see too many Liberians going or coming from Mexico, so I don't understand that. I'd like him to a little bit elaborate on that.
Thank you.
The issue that has to do with Liberians in the U.S. applying for Liberian passport. Now, 2 years back, I did apply for a Liberian passport to the consulate in New York, and I paid some fees. I flew from Atlanta to New York to do an interview. I paid some fees. They could not get me my passport, and I called over and over. They don't pick calls. Both embassies, the one in Washington and the one in New York, they don't pick your call. At the end of the day, they extended my expired Liberian passport. I had to go to Liberia to be able to pick up my Liberian passport in Liberia. For me, I see that as a fraud because I pay more money, like about $205 here in the U.S. And I could pay at least $50 to get it in Liberia since I was already going to Liberia, and they didn't refund me anything. So I'd like you to explain on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Firstly, in the beginning, I indicated that the work of a Liberian mission is to promote, protect, and advance the foreign policy of Liberia.
Hold on, Joseph.
The commercial and financial interests of Liberia is to relate to the concerns of Liberians and to also help those who wish to visit Liberia by providing them the means to do so. That's why we issue visas. Now, putting a consulate in Mexico wouldn't necessarily be that Liberians have to be there. We have commercial interests, we have financial interests. That would be one of the responsibilities of the consulate, looking after the commercial interests of Liberia. But I believe strongly that we have some Liberians in Mexico. The number, I don't know because I have not been there, but we will have, Liberians are all over the place. People have called from all walks of life, called the embassy, have called me personally, wherever they are. So I wouldn't discount the fact that we could be having some Liberians in Mexico. Mm. The honorary consul or consul general doesn't have to necessarily be issuing visas or passports to Liberia to be doing other things which relate to the commercial and financial interests of Liberia. Now, the passport situation, if you were encouraged to go and get your passport from Liberia, the policy right now is that you have to apply for a passport. In my office, you have to apply for a passport. And it must be our fault that you have not received your passport and you have to make your trip urgently to Liberia. Under that situation, under that circumstance, we will give you a laissez-passer that will take you to Liberia, and we will make a call before you get there, give you a piece of paper that you want to take with you. As this person, Mr. Paul, Miss Susan, or Miss Sarah, apply to this office for passport, and the information is with you in Monrovia. But we gave him a laissez-passer because the passport is still there. So please deliver his passport to him. That's the condition under which we will issue you a laissez-passer. Otherwise, we are not supposed to do so. Now, if you didn't have a passport at all, if you think you couldn't undertake the process and you wanted to go home urgently, it's still your right to go to Liberia and obtain a passport. Nothing stops you from doing that. Nobody will stop you.
Thank you.
Did I answer all the questions?
Yes, and you asked if you have a U.S. citizenship.
No. I have lived all over the world in my diplomatic sojourn, and the only citizenship I have is Liberian, and this is what I will have. I have not seen the citizenship of any other country.
Right. You sound like you're rubbing it in, like, you see, I don't have it, and you guys have it.
I'm a proud Liberian.
But here's my question.
But I don't blame folks who carry the other passport. Some people, it was conditions that led people here. It's not people wanted to just leave. Some people, because of the war, they had to leave. So I don't blame anybody for carrying that. No, not at all.
Yeah, my two last question. Yeah. Number one, what is there was a diaspora office that was set up under President Ellen Sirleaf.
Mm.
I remember Mr. Comedy Wiese was heading that, or was that? Do we still have it? What's the update? And then the second question is, there are some people in the diplomatic field long back that are still complaining that the government of Liberia owe them money. One of them is my old man right now in Lowell, Massachusetts, Ambassador David Duachie, who is still crying that he worked in Liberia as an ambassador or somewhere in the embassy, and he still has not gotten his pay. They say when they go into bury hunchback, man, you got to follow when you get hunchback. So there are Liberian diplomats crying that they don't have their money yet, being paid for over 20 or 30 years. So two questions, the diaspora office, and then pay for some diplomatic individuals, diplomats who have not gotten their pay for over 30 years now.
I believe the diaspora office is still open. I think I understand in Monrovia, the Honorable Trukon, is it Trukon or there is another honorable gentleman who was heading the office is still there. The diaspora office is still there. But I have a diaspora desk in my office. I have two staff who attend to diaspora issues on the issue of the DED that is, Liberians are benefiting from now. We had a major role to play going to Congress, members of Congress through my office, staff members going there, hold a meeting. So on issues of immigration, I have two staff members very capable who attend to those things. So yes, we have the diaspora office here, and was head of the, is it Kurumba or Kurumba was head in that diaspora office. I can be very, very sure about that. Then the last question about, are you there, Mr. Look, the truth of the matter is that even I am owed some money. But this is money that goes back to the war years. And I will tell a story a couple of minutes ago where I slept in the street, me and my family, we slept outside in the open air because rent couldn't be paid. We're not getting rent, we're not getting salary. Those were war years and there was no money coming. So a lot of folks who are in the foreign service and who perhaps have retired by now, could be true that they have some money. But that is not under this government. That is not under the government of President Weah. That wouldn't be under the government of President Sirleaf. Everything went well on the whole, and under this current government, everything is going well. So it could be true that some people are being owed, but that would have come from the Civil War years.
So you consider that as bad debt?
I don't know. I don't know how to classify. I wouldn't be me classifying that.
But will you be able to put in a word for them?
I haven't received mine, and I'm not going to fight for it.
Are you asking for it?
He said he's not going to ask for his.
That's it.
Right.
No, I'm not asking for it. I used to ask for it, but I'm not asking for it anymore.
Well, maybe you are in charge now, so you can be asking yourself for, that way you can give yourself maybe.
No, I don't supervise the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The minister is there, the government is there. I have a role to play, which I was sent here to play, and which I will play effectively.
Thank you.
Ambassador, we can't thank you enough. We will now come to the close of this broadcast, and we can't thank you enough. We just hope that if we can do this maybe twice or maybe 4 times a year, where Liberians that you represent here will hear from you, I think they will greatly appreciate it. So we will now get your parting comment. There are people, Liberians that are listening to you. Anything you want to share with them? Christmas coming. Buy your laptop.
Thank you, Mr. C. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. C. It's been coming on this show. I am pleased to have had the opportunity to speak with you and to the larger Liberian community. Our country needs help. Those of us who are out here who can provide the help, I encourage you to provide it. Just as we did a couple of months ago when we organized communities to contribute to the fight against COVID-19, and folks are still contributing. Let us continue to do so, even through our collaboration and the supervision and cooperation we have with some communities
connectivity.
All right, some trouble there with the connection. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Group now that is doing invest and let others come and take everything. This is our land. Resources are for us. We should go. The next thing I want to say, there's on social media, we sometimes it's not positive and doesn't help us. You know, when investors, potential investors come to my office, some of the things they talk about, the things on social media, we heard this on social media. Is this true? Is that true? And we have to go on explaining, giving them the story and all of that. So we need to help ourselves. The social media is a distraction and it is holding us back from what we could do as a group, as a country, as a people. So I just want to appeal to Liberians, if you don't want to be positive about your country, please. Now, there are others that go about insulting people on social media. And this is, in my view, very, very strange, like our culture, where some of us come from, we go on social media and just insult and tell lies and be untruthful to your own country. This is wrong. I just want to encourage all of us to be the true citizens that we can be to our country. You come here, no matter how long you stay in this place, folks want to go back home. You're going to go back home one day. You want to go something. This is time to start building it. Thank you, Mr. Jai and Mr. C for this forum. I look forward to another one. Please, you can reach out to me anytime. I want to continue to take the president who has found me fit to be here to represent him and to work for him and to work for Liberia. We'll continue to do our best here to work for our country. And we hope that things are continuing to get better, and they will get better every day as time goes by. And we need our people to help us to invest, love the country, show unity, and moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. We really appreciate you being here. As we said, we hope we can do this monthly if possible, so that our people can, and your people can hear from you periodically. Anytime we say when there is no information, then ELDC takes over.
Yes, you're right.
So we want to do our best as possible. The platform is here so that you can reach as many Liberians as possible. Thanks again. I want to thank our audience for being here with us as we now getting ready to close. Mr. Sia, you have Mr. Sia, you have the last word.
Thank you. I got the last word, and the last word is we want to say thanks to those who follow the broadcast, like our Facebook page, subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can know when we have information for you. We need to know what is going on in our country and about our country. Thank you for watching. We have a song, and that song says, we are all Liberians. Even if you're not an ambassador, you are still Liberian. I mean, if you are like me sitting in Minnesota in a court, or this guy right here in Atlanta where this one, you are still Liberian. And that song will take us home. Ambassador, guess what? That song is from Negro Town, your little place that you love so much.
Thank you.
Enjoy it. Folks, that will do it. Ambassador, stay with us for a few seconds. Our technology requires that, but we'll not be talking. I will let you know when to log off. So that song is coming for you. Thank you and bye-bye.
We are Liberian. Liberia is our home. Liberian people. Liberia.